Hello and welcome back to another episode of Not Overthinking. Taimur, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I think this might be the first time we're recording a podcast in the morning. I've just come over, woke up at 8 a.m., cleaned my flat because we're having people over for dinner, and got in an Ubs and came over here. And it is 10 a.m.
Here we are.
What a life. How are you?
I'm pretty good. This is also the first time I've recorded a podcast in the morning with you. So it's kind of nice. I feel like we must have done this at some point in St. Albans. Like, oh, we'll do it in the morning.
Oh, yeah. I think there was one time where like Mac and I were going to Bulgaria or something. Yeah, somewhere. And then
The morning podcast.
in the morning, and then we just had to bash one out.
Yeah, I find that like weirdly when scheduling something like this, I just never really clocked that we could just record it in the morning.
Right.
Day.
Yeah.
But yeah, big fan of doing stuff in the morning. It's
Nice.
the creative juices flowing. How's your week been otherwise?
I think I said this last time as well. I feel like these days my life is just ruled by lots and lots of calendar events that I have to do, and they're all important. I'm pretty ruthless about not doing meetings that aren't important and canceling meetings that are no longer important. I think I think that is one of the things I am good at. But yeah, I think it's quite. Yeah, I think I said last time as well. I rarely feel like I have a sense of peace, you know. And I think the lack of commute partly contributes to this, because I remember yesterday when I was coming over to London. Was it yesterday or the day before when I came over to London from home? I was really looking forward to the commute because I was like, that's just like, half an hour of just like, don't have to do anything, can just read my Kindle, Whereas, yeah, I think sans commute, you don't really get that, There's no time of peace.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I had a big deep work day yesterday, and I have another deep work day today after this podcast. And I found that when I was like in the house on the desk, I was just like, this is not the one. And then I did a kind of 10-minute commute walking down to the local Indian restaurant by the name of Dishoom, which took about like 5-10 minutes to get there. But I had my AirPods in, I was listening to Mistborn Book 3, and it was just like a very nice reset. And then I got there, I was like, all right, cool, I'm in work mode now. And then after I'd exhausted my stay there with a spare £4 for their unlimited oat milk chai and like a bread and butter bun, I was like, okay, I've probably rinsed these guys enough. So let me do another commute to Granger & Co., which is another 10 minutes down the road. And that like reset just worked so nicely. And then I came back to the house at some point to do a poo, have a shower, all that jazz.
Yeah.
Spent a bit of time working in the house. I was like, cool. As soon as I found my energy levels being sapped, like, let's commute to another place.
Yep.
And it was so nice. It's so good having those resets.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I often do the same thing if I'm in London, particularly, where it's like I get up in the morning, I'm like, damn, it's like 9 a.m. Especially if I look out and it's like all rainy and stuff, then I'm like, oh man, what is this? And then I leave and go to my local breakfast spot, and I go there and work there for a bit and things like that. But the annoying thing is that most days, like, I just have too many calls to be able to be pissing around in coffee shops, And so, yeah, I generally block out Wednesdays to not have calls, but still there are some important things that come up. Anyway, that's me. How are you? How's your past week been?
It's been good. I need to look at my calendar to see what I've done in the past week. Oh, okay. So, yeah, a few interesting things. Had the wedding of our mutual friend Paul over the weekend. So we spent the weekend in Cambridge. That was quite nice. Saw a lot of people for... Well, yeah, I mean, weddings are a good chance for the gang to get together for an excuse. And we all had to sleep over at Lucia's place, which was super nice. So that was great vibes all around. Went punting as well on Sunday. In the sunshine. I intended to have a deep work afternoon, but then our mutual friend Callum messaged me being like, do you want to go for a punt? And I was like, well, initially he messaged me, do you want to go for a pint? I was like, and then he said, whoops, autocorrect, lol, knows me too well, lol. And he said, do you want to go for a punt? I was like, all right then. So we got some nice photos of us punting. It was very cute. And then on Tuesday, we had a whole day kind of business planning day with a business coach.
Oh, yeah?
Which was like really helpful. And we figured out the core focus of our business.
Wait, I'm going to stop you here.
And we focused, yes,
I'm going to
please.
stop you here.
Yes, please.
I feel like every 6 to 8 weeks on the pod or off the pod, you're like, right, lads, I had an amazing session with the business coach. We figured out the focus of the business now. Like every 2 months, you...
I mean, we last had the session with this guy a month ago.
Oh, okay.
And I probably would have raved about it then.
Okay.
But that wasn't like, what did we do? Well, what did we discuss on that one? That one was about our accountability chart. That was about the structure of the business.
Oh yeah. Last time it was like, lads, we've come up with the org structure.
Exactly.
This is going to change the game.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at all these post-its that are like stuck on the wall, which are like vision, data, process, issues, people, and attraction, the 6 areas of the business. And so we're like going over those one by one. And then, last month we had our focus day, and 2 days ago was our vision building day 1, and we have vision building day 2 in a month's time. So this time in a month's time, we'll probably be like, lads, we figured out our 3-year plan. So that was really great.
How much of the value of the business coach do you think is in just forcing you to sit down for a day and not do any normal work? And how much of the value do you think is actually just like forcing you to carve out the time to do some higher level stuff?
I think a big chunk of the value is in forcing us to carve out the time. So I do have like an A/B test comparison for this. So I have done I have tried this 3 times. One was fairly unstructured, where I didn't know what I was doing, and it was like, you know what, I'm going to spend a whole day to figure out what I want to do with the business. It didn't really go anywhere. I had a bunch of ideas, but it was like, cool, not much of a framework. The second time around was when I first read a book called Traction, which introduces the entrepreneurial operating system. And it just basically lays out, like, these are all the things you have to do. This is what it means to figure out your vision, your 10-year plan, your marketing strategy, your 3-year plan, your 1-year plan, blah, blah, blah. And so me and one of my team members, Angus, we locked ourselves in a WeWork conference room for a day and just kind of went through the book and did it one by one and kind of did it ourselves.
Yeah.
And we came to some reasonable conclusions as to what our vision and values and all that jazz were. This was a few months ago. And then we thought, you know what, let's just hire one of these entrepreneurial operating system, like, certified coaches so that they can take us through the process and see what happens.
Oh, I see.
And so this is the certified coach. It's basically taking us through this process that we already know what it is, having read the book. I've read the book repeatedly.
Yep.
And having already tried it ourselves. But there was still significant value add in the guy being there, because he's taken like 386 companies through the exact same process. And so when we were trying to figure out what are our values, what's our vision and stuff, because he's just done it so often with a bunch of companies of different sizes, he was able to give his perspective on that, which was also value add. So I think, there is value in just sitting down and doing it, but there was even more value in doing it with a book, and there was even more value in doing it with a coach.
I think there's a trap that one can fall into I'd call this the Superman trap. Or,
okay.
Superwoman or what have you. Where you kind of think to yourself, for example, someone might have a fairly intense job, and then they also, want to work out, go to the gym, get hench or lose weight or something like that. And, they might also want to sort of do other things that require time and energy, maybe other kinds of projects, or, just like general stuff like cook food, keep the house clean, things like this, right? And with all of these things, you can kind of there is the option to pay someone to help you do the thing, like get a personal trainer or something, or pay someone to actually just do the task itself, like cook for you, clean the house, this kind of stuff. This also applies to, like, if you want to, like, start a YouTube channel or something, you might see that, there's all these random, like, online courses of, like, how to start a YouTube channel kind of thing. And I think a common thing, whenever I've chatted to people about this kind of stuff, there seems to sometimes be this, what I call the Superman trap of thinking, well, it is possible for me to do all these 5 things completely myself without any help, without paying any money, without any help. And you're kind of thinking, like, if I were Superman, I would be able to juggle my job and go to the gym regularly and, like, cook and do my YouTube channel and stuff like that, when actually, like, just kind of outsourcing or paying someone to kind of give you a kick up the arse for some of these things will mean that they actually get done, because you're not Superman, right? But I think in our heads we sometimes think, well, theoretically, like, I could, there's nothing stopping me from, like, doing all of these things. Like, I could do it. I think, some people might think on, like, the business coach front of, like, I've like bought the book, like, actually I could do it myself. Like, what's the point of, like, getting some extra help, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think this is completely true. The way I think of it when I describe the value of coaching and courses and personal trainers and stuff to people is that sort of similar to your terminology, but the other way around. So I say, look, fundamentally, at the end of the day, I am a waste man, and this thing is not going to get done unless I have some level of accountability or some money on the line or some way of actually making me do it. I think in a business context, people are far more open to it because the return on investment is completely, well, it's usually very clear. Like, for example, this guy cost us like £3,000 for the day or something stupid like that. But it's like, well, we could do it ourselves with the book, or we could pay £3,000 to have a guide to take us through the process. But given that this is like long-term business strategic planning, if we even deviate, like make a 1% correction, that is totally worth that £3,000. So it becomes a complete no-brainer to do this sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's in the business realm, like people, the same people are much more sort of, I don't think that's the right word, but much more amenable to paying money for services and, you know, coaching and things like that. I think in the realm of business, you know that if you're spending money, you know that the payoff will be monetary. And so it's kind of like an apples to apples comparison. Whereas outside the realm of business, if you're paying money, like it's often, you know, maybe there's monetary return somewhere down the line, but it's not kind of directly there. Like, for example, getting a personal trainer or something. It's like, oh man, I'm spending like hundreds of pounds a month, you know, and like it's, you know, yeah, I think we just like value things in terms of money most of the time, man. So we end up like undervaluing other things. Yeah,
definitely. Like, I remember at one point I was in the camp of anti fancy gym memberships. Where I was like, why would you pay £80 a month for a fancy gym when you've got exactly the same features in a £20 a month gym?
Yeah.
And I think broadly I can map that attitude, which that attitude to me directly correlates with how much money I had at the time.
Okay.
So back in the day when I was in school and the iPhone first came out, I was in the camp of, why would you buy an iPhone 3G when you could buy a Samsung Galaxy S2 which does the same thing?
Yeah, and the screen is big and the specs.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got a dual core processor.
Yeah, I don't think I was quite that like Snapdragon-y about it, but I was very much in that camp. And then at one point, I think in sixth form or like around age 16 to 18, that was when some people I knew were starting to get MacBooks. And MacBooks, I was priced out of the market for MacBooks at the time.
Yeah.
And so it was like, why would you get a MacBook? Well, why would you get a PowerBook Pro when you could get the Acer X Series 84Z 5.2 with the 256 gigabyte hard drive, of course. That would be like half the price. Yeah. And then when I got to university and I'd started making money through tutoring and stuff, and then I got a MacBook, I was like, oh, okay, I can see why this is a thing. And I can see why now that I am able to afford this, I see the value in it. But when I couldn't afford it, I would scoff at the value of it.
Oh no, yeah. I think it's perfectly legitimate. Like if money is the limiting factor, it's perfectly legitimate to like, you know.
Oh no, of course,
not do this. But I think there are loads of people for which money is not the blocker. The blocker is the mental shackles.
No, absolutely.
Of the Superman trap.
I'm not saying that when money is an actual limiting factor, because when I was younger, I literally could not afford a MacBook.
Yeah.
I'm saying I did not see the value of a MacBook because I could not afford it.
Okay.
And I would therefore virtue signal to myself and others that actually I'm a discerning connoisseur of tech, and therefore I'm buying the Android version rather than the iOS version. And so I think that's one strand of people. Like for example, if you, I mean, thinking of myself, I only started to appreciate the value of coaching once I was able to afford coaching. So that's like one camp of people. Then, as you've alluded to, there's the other camp who actually could afford it, but who feel it's, quote, not worth it because of some...
Yeah, it's just a Superman trap. It's kind of thinking like, well, I could in theory do all these things myself. So why would I pay someone to do it? Like, you know, it's possible to get ripped or whatever without a PT. It's possible to start a YouTube channel without a course. It's possible to do all these things. I actually think it's a Superman trap. Like the actual thinking thought process is, it is possible for me to do these things without the extra help, and so I should do that. And like I've thought this way myself, and I probably still think this way about certain things. That's why I'm pretty sure this is like an actual phenomenon.
So I've been doing a bunch of reading into this sort of thing for book research, and there is this whole phenomenon of, I think they call it like the future self trap or something like that, which is where we think our future selves are more competent than our current selves.
Yeah.
And so procrastination is like, well, I don't have the energy to do this today, but my future self will magically have the energy to do it this time tomorrow. And I think it's similar. That's a similar vein to your Superman trap. When we're imagining things in the future, we are thinking of ourselves as being far more competent than we actually are. And I find that whenever people say to me, oh, but I could do it myself, the question is, well, why haven't you? Or, you know, I could theoretically lose weight by myself without a personal trainer. Okay, but, you know, in the last 5 years, have you? Kind of thing. So,
all right. The actual thing I wanted to talk about is the mind virus known as cringe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
I think, you know, humans have this natural cringe response to certain things.
What do you mean by cringe?
Sorry?
What do you mean by cringe?
It's a feeling of like embarrassment or secondhand embarrassment, right? When you see something that you consider distasteful, it's you know, you feel this feeling of like embarrassment or secondhand embarrassment. And I think that's kind of what cringe means. And I think it's useful, right? Like it's useful for people to have this cringe response because it helps people generally just like sort of police other people and wider society and community into not doing things that are considered distasteful. So it would be
quite useful.
Yeah, it kind of enforces social norms basically, right? Like it would be cringe if someone was walking around naked and things like that. You know, it would be cringe if two people are having like a domestic yelling fight in the supermarket. You know, like lots of things are cringe for good reason. Because, you know, we don't want them around. But I think the real pandemic today. No, I think I'd characterize it more as a mind virus than a pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's not quite gone to pandemic levels.
No. Like, I think I think they're orthogonal. Sorry. I'll stop taking the piss now. I think our cringeometers are out of control.
Oh,
and
it's a good phrase.
Yeah, I think we are governed by cringe aversion too much. I'm coming out with so many phrases today.
This is great. This is a whole new strand of content on the podcast.
Yeah.
You know, last time we had phrases was optionality, like 3 years ago.
Yeah, I haven't come up with any phrases recently.
Like, man, you need to come up with more phrases. This is good.
I had a
cringeometer and cringe aversion and Superman trap.
Superman trap. Yeah, and I think our level of cringe aversion is so extreme that I think it's kind of stopping us from doing so many things, and it's really kind of holding us back and shackling us down, right? So one area in which I've noticed this is in the younger generation, all right? Allow me to opine on the younger generation, if I may. When talking to people who are, let's say, aged between like 7 and 15 or something, 7 to 16 maybe, I found that they tend to describe things as cringe quite a lot. And, you know, maybe that could just be a language thing, you know, like back in the day, oh man, that's so lame or whatever. And now people say, oh man, that's so cringe. That might be what's going on, but I don't think that's what's going on, because I think, particularly in the realm of anyone doing anything vaguely public, there is this huge sort of, cringe aversion where, like, I think a lot of people, you know, now with the internet, you have the option of sharing yourself with the world in a way that you probably didn't have, you know, previously. And I think a lot of people feel compelled to share themselves with the world, and they feel an urge to kind of share themselves with the world. But the cringe aversion is so strong that they don't do it. And I think, like, being sincere is also considered, you know, quite cringe. Like if you look at like twitter.com, you know, Instagram.com. I was thinking UK.com. You know, I think, like, and I know you don't like me saying most people, but when I say this, I felt it myself, and that's why I'm saying this. Yeah, it feels like being sincere is cringe. Putting yourself out there is cringe. And so I think a lot of people are being held back by fear of being labeled as cringe.
What do you mean being sincere?
Sorry?
What do you mean by being sincere?
Just like being very earnest about expressing something. I think on the internet, on these websites,
Because it's not cringe to express your concern about the I don't know, the Afghan refugees or things like that. So what do you mean by like what sort of sincerity equals cringe? Do you think in the minds of the youth of today?
I don't know. I don't think it's just the youth. I think I've noticed the youth using the word cringe a lot more than it would have been used in the past. But I think it's everyone of all ages. So what was your question? Like what kind of things?
What kind of things do you think sincerity gives that cringe response to? I mean, so I can think of like if I was sincere about expressing my love of my friends, that could be considered a bit cringe. And it's the sort of thing that you'd sort of feel a bit uncomfortable about bringing up. Be like, hey guys, just want to say it's going to sound a bit cringe, but like, I just really value all you guys. And like, I'm so glad that we're here together on this holiday. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
You would have to preface that with,
precisely. That's
this is going to come across as a bit cringe, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And, I think that's kind of weird, right? Like, why do we have to do that? And I think you've often used the term cringe pass, like, oh, you have to give me a cringe pass or something, or in what context do you find yourself wanting to get a cringe pass? I guess for you it's kind of like around the YouTube clickbait titles and things like that.
More like around like if for example I'm talking about the company vision, which is inevitably going to be cliche, and so therefore to say it genuinely feels a bit embarrassing that this is a thing. And for people who do not appreciate the difficulty in coming up with a company vision and the inevitability that it's going to be somewhat cliche, I feel like I need to signal that the cringe pause signals a level of self-awareness that I know this is going to sound bad, but bear with me on it because it's got actual value. Similarly, like when I've been on dates, on those few occasions when the conversation has been like, and like, the girl would start saying something and be like, oh no, I can't say that. It's too embarrassing. Yeah. Then it's like, it's okay. It stays between us. We've got a cringe pass here kind of thing.
Yeah.
As a sort of a semi-serious, not serious way of like acknowledging that it's okay to say something that sounds outwardly embarrassing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Do you feel like I'm off base here? Do you feel like the cringe thing isn't that big a deal? I just see it so much.
I don't think the cringe thing is. I don't see it as increasing. I think the cringe thing is basically I'm worried what my peers will think of me. And back in the day, the words for that were lame or insert homophobic slur here, and these days the word cringe has started being used so much. Okay,
so you think it's just like a language thing, but actually fundamentally nothing has really changed?
I think fundamentally people have always had
the cringe response has always been there.
A fear of putting, we were talking to a nephew and niece who are like 17 to 19. And I was chatting to them about like the prevalence of TikTok amongst their age group. Yeah. And they were like, oh yeah, everyone watches TikTok like all the time. And I was like, but do any of your friends make TikToks? Oh God, no, that would be cringe.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But I think 10 years ago, that would have been considered lame rather than cringe.
Oh, okay.
And I think like...
No, I don't think so, man.
No, I mean, okay, but also 10 years ago, the sorts of people that would have been making, I say 10 years ago, more like 15 years ago, the sorts of people that would have been making home videos and sticking them on YouTube were the nerds anyway.
Yeah.
And so they didn't, it wasn't the population that defines what's cool that was posting videos on YouTube 15 years ago. You posting your random crap on YouTube circa 2007.
Hey. There's no need for that language.
A rat in hamster food cage or University Challenge Goodbye. It was a different time where that thing was less public. It was less...
Here's the thing, actually. So I think that's a good example. So I remember like a few years ago, I thought back, I looked at my like YouTube videos that I'd made and posted during like secondary school.
Yep.
And I thought like, man, I had some serious balls. Yeah. And I'd make it. I'd spend an evening. I'd put it on YouTube, and then I'd post it on Facebook for the entire school to see.
Yeah.
And I think like in many ways, secondary school is where like you'd have like peak cringe aversion. But I think back then, just like general, I think just like the cringeometer was calibrated a bit differently, and I think like I wasn't so fussed about like, oh, this being cringe, and I don't think anyone was that fussed fussed about things that being cringe.
I think it was because back in the day, the social norms around posting on the internet and I think the cringeometer was always there, but it had not been developed for the internet.
Like, okay, but like, what kind of, I think you might be onto something there, but like, what kind of stuff was cringy when we were in secondary school? Like making internet content, I think was not cringy because like no one was doing it. It was just like kind of weird and kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like, but maybe probably not even weird. It was just like, haha, it's just like funny. It's like whatever.
Video. What stuff would have been cringe? Someone volunteering to do a school assembly would have been cringe.
I mean, tryharding has been cringe since the beginning of time.
Someone breaking into song during the school assembly that they volunteered to give would have been cringe.
Are we still talking in hypotheticals here?
Of course, we're still 100% talking in hypotheticals. Basically, someone putting themselves out there publicly in the real world, the equivalent of which was going up on the stage and, school assembly, or a student, like, for example, in a whole year group kind of seminar in, for example, the Westcliff Theatre, if, I don't know, the person speaking were to say something and someone were to raise their hand and stand up and make a counterpoint in a way similar to, for example, at the Cambridge Union, where someone like stands up and says, my name is whatever from whatever college, and I would like to counter your point by saying ABC. That would have been cringe AF.
Okay.
Because it was outside of the social norm of the real life. These are the things that people do when they're seated in this lecture theatre.
Yeah.
And those people, everyone would have been like, ugh, cringe. But we didn't have those rules developed for the internet. And so now that we have those rules developed for the internet, it's cringe to dance on TikTok. Unless you get big, in which case, I want to be your friend.
Yeah.
It's cringe to walk around with a camera filming YouTube videos and talking to it, unless you're a big YouTuber, in which case, oh my God, can I be a new vlog? So I suspect the cringeometer has always been there. It's just been more developed in the era of the internet over time as the social norms surrounding that have changed.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. So then I guess maybe my point is more like, I think our cringeometer, our sort of online cringeometer is still miscalibrated, and we're still way too like cringe averse. And I think part of the reason is because of what I would dub the asymmetry of cringe. Okay, so I think like when you express certain kinds of sort of aesthetic preferences, like, oh, I like this kind of food, I don't like this kind of food, right? You're not making like a normative judgment. You're not trying to say that this kind of food is bad and this kind of food is good for everyone, right? It's clear that that's a preference. But when you describe something as cringe, I think cringe is kind of like,
it's a social commentary.
It's a social commentary. It assumes some shared taste that we all have, right? It assumes that we all have the shared taste. And when you say that, oh, this is cringe, it's not like saying, oh, I like Indian food. It's more like making society agrees with me that this is bad. Yeah, exactly. And so there's this kind of asymmetry where it's the I don't know, whatever the Overton window equivalent is for cringe, where it's extremely easy for the window to shrink of like what is considered, basically you can call things cringe, and then people basically have to agree with you. I mean, not agree with you. Like, no one's sitting there and saying, yes, I agree, we can call this cringe. No one's doing that.
Yeah.
But as you get the general sense that like, this is considered cringe, this is considered cringe, and so on, like,
it's very hard for someone to argue against that.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that because, I mean, I think for the same reason that, like, I think we've talked about this on an episode ages ago. I don't like the term weird, when describing people, because, again, it's kind of this sort of normative thing where if someone says, oh, this person is weird or something, there's another big asymmetry there where it's very easy to increase the number of people that are weird, but it's very hard to decrease that number. Like, if it takes a lot to like stand up and say, actually, no, I don't think that's weird, because then you're kind of, you're putting yourself at risk.
And then you're the weird
being
one.
part of, being part of the weird gang.
Yeah.
And so I think cringe is similarly asymmetric, where it is really easy to
Label something as cringe.
to label something as cringe, and it is really difficult to unlabel something as cringe. And so this is, I think, where the asymmetry comes in, where like on a daily basis, you're on your computer, you're on your websites, and there's people going, oh, cringe, 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 cringe. There's people labeling things as cringe. And so like
in real time, your Overton window is shrinking.
Yeah. The window for what's non-cringe is like always shrinking.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to like actually to widen that. And so that's kind of what I mean, and I think maybe, it feels like this is getting out of control online. And I think it didn't really happen pre-internet, like posting, because in real life, like everyone's not drinking from the same fire hose of information. And then also like, I feel like everything's also just kind of less permanent and stuff. And so in real life, the cringe window is not like the cringe window is not being assaulted 24/7, whereas on the computer, on the websites, the cringe window is being assaulted 24/7 because people are just like constantly posting. And like combined with the fact that like calling something bad is better content in terms of engagement and stuff than calling something good, combined with that fact, I think just the cringe window is just being bombarded constantly, and there's no equal and opposite reaction that you can do to increase it. And so like everything is just going to get drowned in cringe.
So if we're thinking about what are the equal and opposite reactions, I think that there are opposite reactions, but they're not necessarily equal. For example, when TikTok first came out, random person posting dance videos on TikTok, at the point where people knew what TikTok was, but it did not yet have complete mass adoption, would have been more cringe than it is now. And random person in your social circle posting videos on TikTok is still cringe, but it now kind of depends on what social circles you roam in, and it's now become a lot more acceptable to put yourself out there online publicly. So I think there is that, especially as more and more people talk about the value of putting yourself out there publicly and all that jazz, the Overton window in that sense is expanding. I'm thinking about the phenomenon of medical students starting YouTube channels.
Okay.
As a case study for this.
Okay. Yeah.
And before, dare I say, before me, in 2017, there were not many medical students who had started YouTube channels.
Yeah.
At least in the UK. I'm sure they were in the US, but I don't really follow them. They were like a handful, but it was like a fairly minority thing to do. And you could, and in 2017, when I, as a medical student, started making YouTube videos, the vibe was, it was easy to get over the cringe response by saying, I'm helping people get into med school because medical applicants are interested in this stuff.
Yeah.
Then very quickly, as more and more people started jumping on that medical student starting YouTube channel train, and the content moved from educational content helping people to get into med school more towards, this is a day in my life. At that point, you could still sort of be like, well, okay, day in the life of a medical student, that's kind of useful to applicants. And then it kind of goes beyond that as more and more people enter the space where there's even less. And then I think it reaches peak cringe where it's like, oh, you're another one of those medical students starting a YouTube channel for no reason, just like vlogging about your day, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
And so we kind of hit peak cringe where like people are like looking down on this as being a phenomenon. And then as more and more people do it, its acceptability increases to the point that it actually becomes less cringe. And now I suspect for a medical student to start a YouTube channel, people would hardly bat an eye and it wouldn't be like, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this.
So you're saying...
So there's like a...
Wait. I mean, so I'm not plugged into this world, so...
a bell curve of cringe, I think.
Right. So you're saying it was more cringe, let's say in like, you started in 2017 or something. Yeah. You vlogging medical school in 2017 was less cringe than someone vlogging medical school in 2020.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. Okay. And now in 2021, it is not that cringe anymore because there's so many people doing it.
I think around 2019, 2020, as probably around 2020, if we go on pandemic, probably around 2020 was, I suspect, if I may opine on the youth of today, around 2020 is when it started to, it was, we sort of probably peak cringe.
Yeah.
Because I know a bunch of medical student YouTubers who were really, really scared to put out vlogs because they were like, oh my God, it's so cringe. And now those same people are more okay with it, but also newcomers to the space who I also know of are also more okay with it. So I think... And I think that trajectory is similar to the I am making videos on YouTube trajectory, and also I am making stuff on TikTok trajectory, where at some point where people know about it and know that it's a thing, it reaches peak cringe. And then as it becomes more and more socially acceptable, it's like whatevs. Like, for example, starting a newsletter 4 years ago would have been a bit cringe.
Yeah.
I feel like starting a newsletter today is less cringe than it would have been a few years ago because it is now more mainstream.
Yeah.
And so that, my point overall there was, yes, the Overton window is shrinking by the ease of labeling something as cringe, but there is also a reaction in the opposite direction of as something becomes more mainstreamified, it actually expands. Like, for example, in the 40s, it would have been cringe to wear, like, I don't know, colorful clothing, but in the 60s, suddenly colorful clothing is all the rage. And everyone wants to wear colorful clothing. And so this thing that once used to be cringe and associated with like homophobic slurs was then not cringe because of social acceptance that, oh, it's actually okay to be a bit different kind of vibes.
I see. But we keep saying Overton window. The Overton window is this, it's this term coined by presumably someone called Overton, which it basically describes the window of politically acceptable discourse in public. Where, you know, back, 10, 20 years ago, you could say a lot more things were socially acceptable to say, whereas now fewer things are socially acceptable to say. And so the Overton window is said to be shrinking. And so I think there needs to be a similar concept for the cringe equivalent.
Yeah, like socially acceptable rather than politically acceptable.
Yeah.
Which is sort of the same thing, kind of.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think the Overton window is more like, if you're outside the Overton window, you could get cancelled. I think the cringe window is like...
You could get ostracized. Well, but like...
Yeah, you wouldn't get cancelled for it. It's just cringe, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, things definitely become less cringe, like if they're more mainstream. That's true. Yeah, maybe that is the balancing force of just like at some point.
I think things become less cringe as they become more mainstream, but also things become less cringe as they become more signals of status. For example, if people know that, oh, if you get big on TikTok, you can make a lot of money. Now, all of a sudden, starting a TikTok account loses some of its cringe factor because people know that there is a path to wealth at the end of it. Maybe back in the day, I'm dropping out of college/university to start a business would have been a bit like, ugh, cringe. Like, what are you doing? And now it's like, well, I wish I could do that too.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think like obviously as things get almost by definition, like the more mainstream things get, the less cringy they are, right? But I do feel like there's still this asymmetry, man.
Yeah, there is an asymmetry. It's much easier to label something as cringe or not socially acceptable than it is to argue that in fact it actually is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a zealot for this for this cause. In that, whenever in a social circle, if someone says, "Oh, person X has started a insert social platform or public thing here," it's a bit cringe. I'm always like, hold up. Why is that cringe? They're putting themselves out there. They're like, living their best life, etc. When we were at dinner last night and we were talking about online courses, one direction the conversation could have gone is, oh, it's cringe when people sell online courses.
Yeah, but you were at the dinner, so no one was going to say that.
Yeah, it could have gone in that direction. And had I not been successful at selling online courses, that's one path in which conversation could have gone. And in a different group, the group might have collectively decided, oh yeah, it is Tai Lopez and stuff. Oh, it's cringe when people sell online courses.
Yeah.
But if there's someone at the table, even if it's not a case of they're not saying the thing just to be polite, there is a thing of like, I think I made a pretty good case for why online courses should be a thing. And so in a circumstance like that, when you do have an opposition force that's arguing against the point that the group as a whole is potentially at danger of coming to a consensus agreement on, that does genuinely change a person's mind, because now in future occasions these people might not even be inclined to suggest to think that online courses are a bit cringe, because they know that actually this point has been countered. Hopefully. I
wonder if the cost to pushing back against a cringe judgment is actually a lot lower.
I think it's similar to back in the day. It's if someone's like, oh, it's totally lame to, I don't know, it would not have been called lame to play the piano in assembly, but it would have been called lame to sing in assembly.
Yeah.
And
I don't know, like if you're good at singing, I think we wouldn't have been lame. Actually, no, I remember there was this guy, there was this guy who sang. So basically at school, I think like on Wednesdays in assembly, there'd be some kind of musical performance.
Yeah.
And some guy sang Hallelujah, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember.
It was pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, and it was really good. And then I think everyone was just like taking the piss for no reason. like he became known as the Hallelujah guy in my year. And
that was the first time I heard that song in that Wednesday assembly. Yeah. But if you'd been playing Hallelujah on the piano, no one would have batted an eyelid. Where was I going with this? And so I think the social cost of defending Hallelujah boy, Hallelujah guy, was definitely it was definitely non-zero. Yeah. Like, hey guys, why are we collectively taking the piss out of Hallelujah guy? You're like, shut up, bro.
This reminds me of a really good moment in Arrested Development. This is probably too comedy. It's probably not worth going into.
Go on.
All right, I'll say it for the dozens of us out there who are fans. That was also an Arrested Development reference. Basically, Job, who's one of the characters, he's a magician, not unlike yourself. And one magic trick he wants to do is to be in prison and then break out of prison miraculously. And so he's in prison, and it's like the recreational time. They're all out on like the prison playground kind of thing. Some people shooting some hoops or some playing baseball or something. And Job is like completely out of place in this prison because like it's not like a hardened criminal. And then these like really big burly guys with like tattoos and stuff, and those kind of like bandana type things, and things like this. Oh yeah, there's a guy called there's a really big hench prison guy whose nickname seems to be White Power Bill. Yeah, probably some kind of white supremacist type chap. Looks pretty violent, etc., etc. And someone's like saying something to White Power Bill, and then Job decides, oh, this is the time for me to bust out my magic trip. And he says to this other guy, oh, White Power Bill can't hear you because he's got something in his ears or something. And then he pulls like a coin out from behind White Power Bill's ears. I think Job actually says because of his dirty ears or something. And then he pulls out the coin. And then the other guy is immediately like, hey, Dirty Ears Bill. And then everyone starts calling White Power Bill Dirty Ears Bill, just like immediately. That was just like something that everyone could pounce on and just like shit on this guy for.
Yeah.
And obviously this is problematic for Job because White Power Bill is now called Dirty Ears Bill because of Job. And so Job later gets stabbed by White Power Bill.
I see.
But yeah, just like I think that the speed at which like he turned from White Power Bill to Dirty Ears Bill just because Job was like, oh, he's got dirty ears to like do his magic trick. It kind of reminded me of the same thing where like if a bunch of people are shitting on Hallelujah guy and then you're like, oh guys, I don't know why we're saying that, then like immediately people will like jump on you for that thing. And that's kind of the fear that you would become Dirty Ears Bill. Like good stuff. That was worth the digression.
The Dirty Ears Bill trap, some might say.
Right, exactly.
Should add that to the show notes.
Nice.
All right, cool. I think you have to go fairly soon.
I have to go fairly soon. So let us wrap it up. I'll maybe just read out a tweet. Earlier this week, I tweeted 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner should be available by prescription only, and 3-in-1 shampoo, conditioner, body wash should be illegal.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my insight for the week.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about like how you got Overton windowed in response to that.
No. In fact, I'm shrinking the Overton window by saying this.
Yeah.
Multi-function hygiene products are cringe. Yeah. Nah, it's not cringe. They're just really bad. Anyway, that's my insight for the week.
Excellent.
You got
my insight for the week is that on days where I go to the gym in the morning, I feel like I feel noticeably better throughout the day.
Yeah, for sure.
So I need to do more of this.
El Clasico.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.